what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to America's Deadliest Road Explained. And I mean, I don't know what road this will be. I don't really know what the reasoning for this will be. I mean, obviously you got a lot of roads in the US that are huge, whether it's they're wide and they've got like 8 lanes, or they go through residential areas and maybe they're very big, like wide as well, and then that causes people, because it's showing someone walking here, so maybe it's dangerous for pedestrians. I don't know, but we're gonna just check this out and see. I don't know what road this will be, so I mean, yeah, I'm not going into this knowing much at all. But yeah, let's check this out. Links are also in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. I'm doing weather reaction later that I'm going to post to my Patreon because I can't post it to YouTube. But there's movie reactions, TV series reactions, all that kind of stuff. Links are there for those who want to see that. But let's check this out and see America's Deadliest Road.
I've just arrived at the most dangerous place to be a pedestrian in the US. US 19 in Newport Richey, Florida, on the state's Gulf Coast. A group of urban planners looked at the entire US roadway network and identified 60 pedestrian fatality hotspots, 1,000-meter corridors where pedestrian deaths are most common. And this 1,000-meter stretch topped their list. 17 fatal crashes here in a 16-year study window. Pedestrian fatalities in the US have been creeping up in the past decade, thanks mostly to the way road infrastructure favors cars above all else. And nowhere is that more clear than right here. US 19 runs north to south down Florida's Gulf Coast and bisects the small community of Newport Richey, cutting off its downtown from its coastal features, which means traveling east to west or vice versa requires you to cross it. It's a type of roadway that would feel familiar to Americans. Car culture is visible everywhere, from the volume of drivers to the businesses alongside it. And along US 19, drivers are moving fast. The posted speed limit on this stretch is 45 miles per hour, but driving speeds appear to be much faster than that. Traffic safety experts will tell you that speed is one of the most important factors in pedestrian safety. A street design report established that traveling up to 15 miles per hour, drivers have a wide peripheral vision. They only need 25 feet to come to a full stop, and the risk of fatality if they hit someone is 2%. Once drivers are traveling over 40 miles per hour, their peripheral view narrows. They require more room to stop, and the risk of fatality climbs to 85%. Enforcing speed limits can only do so much.
The built environment, as we call it, is sending a message that this is for high-speed travel.
Robert Schneider led the pedestrian safety study that found that 97% of the roadways with high pedestrian fatalities had multiple lanes. At its widest, US 19 spans 8 lanes, which allows cars to pass and move faster than if they were stuck behind another car in a single lane. And the road is straight as an arrow, no curves that would nudge drivers to take it slow. The type of businesses along US 19 support a car-first, fast-driving environment. Big box stores and strip malls that sit far away from the road with large parking lots in between. And billboards displayed up high for an audience of fast drivers rather than at human scale. Arterial roads like US 19, not quite a street, but not quite a highway, were built to keep this high-speed traffic off of nearby residential neighborhoods. But this type of sprawling development grew along arterial roads, creating a dangerous mix of car-centric design with the possibility that pedestrians, cyclists, or public transit users would want to access these business centers. And it explains why arterial roads only make up 13% of US roadways, but are the site of 59% of pedestrian deaths. Now let's relate that to US 19's pedestrian design, or lack thereof. Not everyone can or wants to drive, but they still have to get to where they're going.
I walk along US 19 about 3 or 4 times a week to and from work. It's a lot cheaper than taking a bus. I was crossing the crosswalk, someone was turning and just bumped right into me. I had a few bumps, bruises, some cracked ribs.
I have a hearing disability, which causes severe vertigo and issues with balance, so it's not wise to drive. Every single day, I am afraid of either getting bumped or yelled at or honked at or cut off every day.
As a pedestrian trying to cross the road, I'd have to choose between this crosswalk or this one, which is nearly 950 meters away.
Dang.
That's a 30 or 40-minute walk, a distance so far that it encourages risky jaywalking.
That's the next crossing? I mean, I guess it's a main road, but that's mad. I mean, I'm looking at this. This is like she said, an 8-lane road at certain points. It's a big road, so maybe it makes sense where there's not so many crossings, but a good 40-minute walk to the next crossing is pretty insane.
There's a better term for that, it turns out.
Cross at a location where there's no signal. In the profession, we tend to try to say that jaywalk is a term that was developed by the auto interests in the early 1900s to essentially shame people who were crossing in the middle of the block, which had been okay socially prior to the 1920s, 1930s.
The sidewalks are constantly interrupted by the curb cuts into parking lots, which introduce more opportunities to interact with a moving car without a signal. I first tried this crosswalk, waited for 10 minutes, only to find out it didn't work. So I tried the next crossing. Robert Schneider told me that the longer you wait at a crosswalk, the more pedestrians are incentivized to cross before the signal. Finally, once you do cross, you have to traverse the length of 8 lanes, which puts US 19 in the company of 70% of the hotspot roadways in Robert Schneider's study that force pedestrians to cross 5 or more lanes. And all of this is so much more treacherous when there's less light. There's a concept in urbanism called safety in numbers. The more pedestrians there are in an environment, the safer it is to be one. There aren't many pedestrians along US 19, which makes the high number of fatalities even more alarming. The lower the median household income in a neighborhood, the more common it is for pedestrian fatalities to occur there. And that's because bad street design and arterial roads like US 19 are more likely to exist in those communities. Improving pedestrian design would invite more people to walk, making it safer for people who have no other choice. Florida transportation officials are spending millions to improve this stretch of US 19, like reducing the speed limit, adding more crosswalks, adding more lights, and delaying green lights at intersections. The mayor of Newport Richey told me he favors adding pedestrian and cyclist bridges here to get people off the road entirely. These are expensive solutions and unpopular among drivers, but not nearly as hard as the long-term goal, which is undoing decades of car-centric design, like removing lanes, adding street parking instead, and developing retail and housing and parking lots. A built environment that will get more people on foot, more drivers to slow down, and will save lives.
It's not a quick solution, but something we need to actually be starting to move towards, rather than continuing to build the sprawling development that we know is dangerous.
This video is...
I'm trying to see, is there... zebra crossings USA. Is there such a thing? Marked crosswalks. A zebra crossing British English or a marked crossing American English is a pedestrian crossing marked with white stripes. Normally pedestrians are afforded precedence over vehicular traffic, although the significance of markings may vary by jurisdiction. So in the UK, you see a crosswalk, the car has to stop no matter what. All US states require vehicles to yield. So they are in the US as well. So marked crosswalk. Yes, you know what? I mean, I'd take it as it is. I didn't know if they were a thing in the US because again, it seems like the focus is on like the drivers, right? People in cars. So I mean, it just wouldn't make sense to have crosswalks. But as a European, this looks so depressing to me. The roads are unnecessarily wide. There are non-existent sidewalks and non-existing bicycle lanes. I mean, it is pretty wild, but I guess people in the US are used to it. I mean, let me know in the comments how you feel. I mean, I assume a lot of you drive, right? And if you're someone who drives, you probably prefer it being more car-centric in terms of the US being focused on basically people who drive. And that's why I've said before, I mean, driving in the UK, I've always thought is so much harder than it is in the US because although it's probably a lot easier here than it is in other countries, because the US is so car centric. I guess it's all built to make driving easier there because the roads are wider. All these things just add up to it being a lot easier. Whereas in the UK, bro, you have to drive down a street where there's cars parked on both sides. It's a two-way street, but there's only enough space for one car. So cars have to park up and then let the other car pass through. And it's harder for smaller cars, let alone bigger cars. So, I mean, it's one of those things where there's obviously pros and cons of each. But obviously, in general, as someone who doesn't drive and someone who walks a lot, I would prefer how I have like the opportunity to just walk somewhere. I live on a busy road in my city, and there's only one lane either side, so only one lane for cars going into the city and one lane of cars going out. And again, this is it's not like a busy road, it's not like a main road, it's just a busy road that leads in and out of the city. I'm trying to think of other bigger roads that lead out. I'd say there's one that is a pretty major road in the city that I live in, that's 2 lanes for cars going in, but then there's a 3rd lane for buses going in, and then 1 lane for cars going out. Which is mad to think that there's only 1 lane for cars going out, but I guess it's just because more people are going to be going in. I don't know why that's the case, to be honest, but yeah, that's that. Let me know your thoughts on this, and until next time, like, subscribe, peace.